Titans, go!
Again, everybody. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, back in Titans Tower, or rather Doom Manor, once again. Ready to talk some more Doom Patrol with my favorite co-host, everybody's favorite co-host, Jesse Jackson. Hi, Jesse. How are you?
I am good, Charles. It feels like we just were talking.
Yeah, this is part 2 of our discussion today because Jesse and I just finished recording Next Stop Everywhere number 140, where we talked Dalek. But so we're kind of doing back-to-back once again.
Yeah,
but this time, go ahead.
That was a shout-out to, because at the end of that episode, we said we were about to talk. So if anyone is doing back-to-back, we wanted them to feel a little extra special, like, oh, they gave a shout out to us that stuck around. So
this is our unofficial crossover.
Exactly.
We need to come up with like a media company name for our production company here, so that we kind of say that this is another fill in the blank production or whatever.
So Charles,
yes,
all is forgiven. The bad taste of last week's episode has been washed away from my mouth. There is rainbows and sunshine, and once again, Doom Patrol.
Rainbows.
Yeah, I've been waiting on a sunny day, and all is good in the Doom Patrol universe.
All right.
Wow, we have a good one to talk about today.
Yes, here at episode 131, we're going to talk Francis Patrol, and that's Francis with an ES, not an IS, because I think Francis is a girl alligator. And so Francis Patrol, this is, of course, the 11th episode of Doom Patrol Season 1 as we head into our home stretch, the final third of the season, just released here on Friday on April 26th, 2019, written by new writer April Fitzsimmons and directed by new director to Doom Patrol, Wayne Yip, who's directed a bunch of other Berlantiverse TV shows, making his Doom Patrol debut here, and I thought it turned out pretty well. Obviously, you seem to like it a lot better than you liked Hair Patrol last week.
I did. This was really, really good, and last night, pull back the curtain a little bit for our listeners and for you.
Yes.
So yesterday, Linda ran in a half marathon. She did great.
Wow.
And
good
so she was pretty tired. So I, kind of babied her a little bit, grilled. We had a nice time. So about 8:30, 8:45, she's like, I can't stay up anymore. I've got to go to bed. So I went to the computer and watched back to back. I watched Dalek and I watched this.
Yeah.
And I think I saved Dalek because I knew it would be good.
Yeah.
And boy, talk about a great double feature of greatness.
Doctor Who and Doom Patrol go pretty well together.
Yes, they did. It was really great story.
Yep. So to give a little background on the cast, this story, Kyle Clements returns as John Bowers once again, the young John Bowers, but we also get the old John Bowers in the form of Tom Fitzpatrick, an actor who has been on episodes of American Horror Story and Sliders, and also has featured as the Bride in Black in the Insidious movies, chapters 2 and 3. If you're a horror movie buff, you might have seen him there as well. So I thought I'd mention him. We get the return of Bethany Anne Lind as Clara Steele, who we finally get to meet officially for the first time in the story. Not a hallucination on Cliff's part. We get the return of Jon Briddell as Darren Jones, who is something I want to talk about here in our third segment, who makes his return from the Bureau of Normalcy. Gary Basaraba, who played Big D, the guy at the bar that kind of cozies up and shares a bucket of chicken with Rita. He's been in episodes of Suburbicon, or actually the movie Suburbicon with Matt Damon, and he's also been on episodes of Northern Exposure back in the day, and also Castle. So I know you're a Castle fan, so I thought I'd mention that. Susan Williams, who played Dolores, who has kind of a quick cameo in this one. She's been in the movies The Accountant, and also on episodes of Homeland, Powers, the TV series based on the comic book by Brian Bendis, and also on Under the Dome, if you remember that series, Under the Dome. She was on that. And then we get the introduction of a character named Agent Dirk Ellis, who's played by Mac Wells, and he's been in the movie Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He had a cameo in that. And also on the Cinemax TV series Outcast, based on the Image comic by Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead fame. He was on an episode of that. And he's also in the movie Rampage with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, if you remember. That came out not too long ago. So he's been in some interesting projects. And then we also had Allison Mills Newman as Yvette. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay.
All right. So no trivia this time because this story wasn't based on any previous Doom Patrol comic book story. So we'll just kind of dive right into our main topics, if that's okay with you, unless you had some early thoughts you want to cover before.
Let's go right to the topics.
All right, right to the topics. Okay. I do have a theme this week. Hopefully you can figure it out. Topic number 1. See you later, alligator. After a while,
crocodile. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously that was a Bill Haley in the comments. Mm-hmm. It's classic. This I want to talk about, of course, Cliff and Rita, who journey to Cypressville, Florida, after Cliff learns that his once buddy named Bump, the guy who was in charge of his pit crew while he was racing, an auto racer, auto race car driver, I should say. He obviously became the kind of surrogate father that because Cliff wasn't around, finds out that he was died after getting eaten by an alligator named Francis, which is why we're calling this Francis Patrol. So he goes down to finally confront his daughter, and Rita tags along after being kind of kidnapped by Flit.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that. So let's get your thoughts on that.
So let's get to the most important question of the episode. How does Rita and Rita and Cliff get home?
Right.
Okay, because Flick took them to Florida and then left.
Right.
How do we do that? But let's not worry about that.
Presumably Flick goes back for them, I guess,
yes,
at some point.
I guess so.
But we don't know yet, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
This was so human.
Yeah.
Cliff, when he was alive, was a person who cheated on his wife every chance he got.
Yeah.
He was
he wasn't satisfied with what he had because he felt he was a big shot. He was a celebrity, and kind of got sucked into the whole fame and the trappings of fame.
He had sex with groupies. He had sex with the nanny.
Right.
But in a typical macho method, cannot even think of the idea that his wife would step out on him with his pit boss.
Right.
The head of his pit crew, which is what Bump was. And
that bothers him, the fact that he was cheated on.
Yeah. And which is so typical.
Yeah.
I love the kind of the wake, so to speak, at the bar, tribute.
Yeah.
Thought it was pretty funny that Rita goes, yeah, Bump made this Halloween costume, and so my friend wanted to wear it in honor of him.
Yeah. See that we were trying to figure out, like, okay, if Cliff goes into this bar, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, he's a robot. He
Yeah,
doesn't quite fit in, and they obviously don't fit in because, for one thing, it's a country bar on top of everything else.
right.
And so they go in there. Rita is this, like 50s Hollywood actress, and Cliff is this big old robot. And obviously they're not fitting in. But I thought that was pretty clever of Rita to explain Cliff as wearing a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
And they actually buy that for some reason. And
Yeah,
and,
like,
and,
oh
and
man, how to do this?
yeah, they're kind of like, well, because they say that Bump made it for him.
Right.
So the first thing is they're not interested about what he looks like underneath. They're just more, these guys are like, well, how did he do this? Oh, he used some kind of spot welder and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And no, it's all carbon and blah 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 blah. And they're just more like trying to figure out the technical aspects more than they care about the guy inside the costume.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of a hand wave, but
It's close enough.
good enough. Good
You
enough.
know, I loved Big D flirting with Gertie
Yeah,
because we find out that Rita's real name is Gertrude.
right. And that was a big admission on her part.
It was.
That she told. So it's, again, she talks about. So what did you think about? Well, we're on the subject of that.
Yeah.
Before we get too farther, what did you think of Rita coming clean with that and talking about that she's trying to be honest with herself and not rely on the Rita Farr persona.
I really like that. One, because I think they've overdone the whole she can't control her body.
Yeah.
And it's, at times of stress, her skin, she becomes the blob.
Right.
So I like this, however they're explaining it. I also think this is very true to her journey, where, she took down a lot of the stuff in her room, really trying to be a real person. You noticed that she didn't have trouble with her body in this episode. Yes, I noticed that a lot, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time since the Titan episode where we showed Rita's huge appetite.
Right.
I don't think we've seen that in this season. So I love that, just her going through so much chicken.
Yes.
And
it's this ginormous, like, plate of chicken.
Yeah.
Like wings and stuff, and she just like devours the whole thing. And Big D is just like, well, you got yourself some appetite there, little lady.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she didn't look down upon Big D. She liked his flirting. She liked the attention, and she honestly returned it. And there was this nice connection.
It was a weird bonding moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was cool to see that.
She wasn't being snobbish toward him.
Yeah, and I think that's a sign.
She was a little snobbish at first when they first entered the bar.
Yes.
And then when Big D kind of won her over, I think, a little bit.
I think so, his charm.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I totally agree that Cliff's. It seems like it. I don't know. I'm two minds, Charles.
Okay.
One, you think Cliff would have a plan before he went in there, but that's so Cliff that he wouldn't have a plan before he gets there. Right?
Cliff's not a deep thinker, as we've established on the show.
Right. So I love the idea that
he's more like, okay, I've got it. Like, I want to do this, and then when he's faced with the reality of how to do something, and especially when concerning his daughter, he folds. He gets really insecure.
Mm-hmm.
and especially about his appearance and whatnot, and he just kind of chickens out.
And I like the idea that we hear Clara talk.
Yeah.
I did some search just for my own sake. Based on the best timeline we can figure out, she's in her early 30s.
Right.
You know.
She was, because obviously last time she talked about, I guess the accident happened in the 80s. So
right.
tack on about 30 years. So she's probably in her late 30s by now.
Yeah. So,
because she was just a kid then.
Right. One of the Wikipedias suggested that her birthday was in 86. But,
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So
that's like 33 years after that.
So telling her story about how after the accident, Bump took care of me. We made it official when I turned 18, which is kind of respectful to her parents.
Right.
She talked about her parents left her a small inheritance.
This watch.
Mostly, yeah. And also you get the feeling a little bit of money. Which would make sense because Cliff was a successful race driver.
Right. Yeah, you should have had some prize money.
But and you got to remember that the Bump that was a jerk was in Cliff's mind only. That was the rat. That isn't the reality is.
Well, he was considered a rat because his wife, even though he should have been angry at his wife, if anything else, because his wife is the one that came on to Bump, I think.
No. What I meant is we had seen Bump be a jerk in Cliff's visions, but that's because
that's how he viewed him.
Yeah, the rat was in Cliff's thing.
Right.
That's what was causing the illusion.
Manipulating.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for all we can tell, Bump was just a good guy.
Admiral Whiskers.
Yeah. Bump was a good guy that cared about Clara and helped raise her.
He did the right thing.
He did the right thing, and I thought how touching that she took this watch that was from her birth father and gave it to her adopted father. And
described it.
Yeah, my dad, my hero. And I think, this ends with Cliff never has the courage to tell her what's going on. And I think that's the right decision. I think no matter what he tells Rita when he says, here's what, am I supposed to say this? And he gives this long story about, I died, but I wasn't died. Now I'm a brain, da-da-da-da-da. And she goes, that's perfect. I'm like, no, it would just blow her mind. You did the right thing. But I thought it was very touching. He went, found the alligator, killed it, and brought back the watch, and then just left. Yeah. I got to tell you, I was crying. I was crying.
You give this one a few tissue boxes.
I do give this one a few tissue boxes. Yes. As
my wife, Lori, would say, she rates things by tissue boxes. That on a 3 tissue boxes, 4 tissue box movie.
Yeah.
But
I saw that for her Avengers Endgame. She gave it several tissue boxes.
Yes, she did. So one of the things I found interesting about Cliff about this, lots of things, but one of the things was that Cliff, when he goes down there, he's obviously still angry at Bump. And, when he goes inside and Rhea's there with Big D, Cliff can't help but take a couple of shots at Bump, talk about it's not like he's, cheating with my wife or anything. And, he does that a couple times. He's obviously still bitter about it. But eventually, though, once he sees how Clara feels about Bump, and the fact, and she tells her story to everybody about what Bump meant to her and how kind he was to her. Cliff, that kind of goes away.
Yes.
And Cliff, this is why Cliff is just he realizes, he comes up with this plan, I'll get this watch, and because I can't compete with that. Apparently Bump was just such a great presence. I can't compete with that if I want to try to get Clara back in my life. So in his head, the way he rationalizes this is I get this watch, I bring it back, I'll be a hero, and then this is my only shot.
Yeah.
And Rita, meanwhile, like you said, is just like, just talk to her. And, being a very practical approach to it. But Cliff is all emotional at this point. And they go tromping through the swamp. They go through it. Rita says something like 3 times through the entire swamp. Can't find Francis, the alligator. And of course, Cliff has this breakdown at this one point. He just has this emotional tantrum. He starts smacking pounding at the water because he's like hip deep in it. And then he pauses and he's just like realizes, he goes, this is crazy. It's almost like he has a breakthrough here, and he realizes, I can't do this. So he's just like, okay, let's go home.
Mm-hmm.
And he sends Rita on ahead. And of course, just when he's ready to leave, lingers for a bit. And then he's just like, okay, he finally starts to head back. And of course, that's when Francis appears and does this hilarious leap through the air, which I had to laugh so hard at, because it's just this big spring in the air, this gator, like almost like it's like in a martial arts movie, going through the air in slow motion at Vic, or at Cliff, excuse me. And you kind of see the camera shot through, the camera's looking through Francis's jaws at Cliff, like that point of view shot. And that's it. That's all we see. And then the next thing we see is Cliff coming back to the bar, Salty Bumps, and he's all covered in like swamp weeds and grass or whatever, like he's been pulled under and fought the alligator and then came crawling out of the swamp. He's like a swamp thing, and crawls back and brings the watch. He's intending to give it to Clara, and she's like, says, hold on a minute, I'll get to you. And then he chickens out and just leaves the watch for her so that she can find it. It's really touching.
It's very touching. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I felt so. I was very happy with him, and I'm very happy with this decision. Like I said, this was it's really emotional. Yeah.
It's like he realized this wasn't the right time to talk to her and reveal that he was still alive.
Exactly. Yes.
And he realized that. So it was kind of a breakthrough for Cliff on this one. Again, no idea how they get back, but
yeah, that's okay.
It was really good. So anything else about Cliff and Rita before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Topic number 2. Together at last at twilight time. So, Together at last at twilight time. That was the Platters song. So, and this I want to talk Larry and John Bowers, because John is having his twilight time. He's about to die, and the negative spirit has basically told Larry, "Hey, John's gonna die. You might want to go visit him." And so Larry goes to visit John just before he passes and tries to reconcile a lot of his feelings. So what did you think of this sequence, the storyline?
So I'm not going to do this too often, Charles.
Yes.
But last week you talked about you were really touched by the chief and his relationship with and I wasn't.
Right.
I was very touched by this relationship.
Okay.
Not only in the past, but mostly in the present, where he's moved on.
Yeah.
He's had a life. You see the pictures.
John, you're talking.
John. It looks like John found a partner. And it looks like they were like on a cruise or in Hawaii or someplace. Right. They both had print shirts, and he's had a good life. But
he talks about that. He talks about how he tells Larry it's like, it wasn't easy, but I moved on.
Yeah. And the actor who plays the older John, Tom Fitzpatrick, was just so wonderful in this.
Right.
Just so not shocked by the bandages or
No.
just keeps holding his hand.
Well, he knew about Larry's accident.
Right.
So it's
And
not like it was a surprise, I think, to him.
yeah, and it was very touching. And
He's just happy that Larry came to see him before he died.
yes, and I think the negative spirit, and that very scene where Larry touches his chest and it slightly glows, that's kind of their way to talk.
Right.
Was just really well done. I was very touched, and then when Jon passes away, at least that's what I take it is. I know he said sleep well, but it appears to me, right, he's passed.
Right, yeah, that's the implication, that he passes. Yeah. Larry's telling him about something, and then meanwhile we see Jon's eyes close.
Yeah.
And his head slumps over.
Right.
And we get the implication that he died while listening to Larry.
And so Larry got, to a certain degree, closure, and Jon got closure. The idea, like when Jon said that was a good steak sandwich, you could tell they were sharing this somehow.
Right.
And I think we've established that the negative was able to get Cliff into Jane's head, so he was able to connect these two for them to go through that
experience.
Experience together.
It's like this whole like shared dream experience.
Yeah, so touching, so well done. I was so emotional, and just a great moving forward of Larry. Larry coming to grips with his past.
Right.
He talks about his wife dying of cancer. He doesn't talk about the children.
Yeah. Hopefully he didn't give her the cancer because it's being radioactive.
That's very Watchmen-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I love that ending, and I love that Larry and the negative spirit are becoming, at least, if not friends, partners.
Right.
So great stuff.
Yeah, that whole animosity, I think, that Larry feels toward the negative spirit has kind of gone away.
Yes.
Now they're kind of coming to this mutual understanding of each other.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and that's good, and that's important, obviously, because if the show's going to move forward, they need to have that. I think. There was this really great shared dream experience that we talked about that Larry really, he wants this memory of being with Jon. He wants to be alone with Jon.
Yes.
And the negative spirit kind of takes him to this kind of like, it's like a gay lounge, and to be with Jon, and Jon's off like sitting at a table with some other gay men, and they're just chatting away friendly or whatnot. And Larry, when he's there with Jon, he's just like, look, is there somewhere we could be private, be alone? And Jon kind of gets mad with him. He's like, I don't want to be alone with you. I want to be with you, but I want to be out with you.
Exactly.
And, he calls Larry out. He's like, you always want to hide. And he kind of like points that out. And so Larry kind of comes to terms with that a little bit.
Yes.
And being more comfortable being out. And I just thought it was really good stuff.
Oh, perfect stuff.
Yeah, it was great. And did you catch the kind of when they were at the gay bar, they were playing, someone was playing Moon River on the jukebox, and it was the original version.
Yes.
And then when Jon passes as an old man, they're playing Moon River again, but it was done by a modern artist. So I thought that was a nice little
very nice.
Bring things full circle on the episode.
Absolutely. A really good version. In fact, I'm going to search.
Track that down. Yeah. Go to tunefind.com. They have TuneFind always has a listing of like what songs are on what shows and what episodes and who does them and whatnot. So I highly recommend it.
Okay.
So check that out. All right. Anything else about Larry and Jon?
No, just perfect.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to topic number 3.
Frank Ocean.
Oh, is that
the
the
guy
singer?
that? Yes. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Good.
Topic number 3. I'm all shook up. Yeah, I'm all shook up. So yeah, obviously that's the
Early
king,
rock and rolls.
the
Yes.
king Elvis. So yeah, so we had Bill Haley and the Comets, the Platters, and Elvis. So yeah, these are all 50s classics this week. That's the theme for this week. Um, I know we're going back, like a lot of you out there listening going, what? But yeah, it's the dawning of rock and roll, guys. You should know
Absolutely.
this. It's important. This is history. And so here I want to talk about Vic, Jane, and the Bureau of Normalcy here because while after taking Cliff and Rita off to Florida as Flit, Jane, who starts off the episode trying to call a team meeting, only gets most of the team. Vic's off doing whatever. Opening his arm up to kind of check to see if he's got mechanical parts inside, where there shouldn't be, and so eventually Cliff and Rita go off, Larry's away, and so it's kind of just Vic and Jane at this point. So Vic and Jane are kind of following up on the whole Flex Mentallo thing that I talked about last week. See, I told you it was important.
Yes.
And they kind of take it upon themselves to try to track down Dolores, and problems ensue. So I want to talk about Vic and Jane in this segment and what you thought about them.
I'm a little bored is the wrong term. I'm not as engaged.
Frustrated?
Yeah, but just I'm not as engaged with Vic's
storyline.
Yeah, this whole control issue. I partly because I think he's a little bit dumb not to get his dad involved.
Well,
I know he doesn't trust his father, but
there are trust, and he's justified in his trust issues, I think.
Yeah, but just if your operating system is telling you you're becoming more and more percentage of non-human and more cyborg, you would seem like you'd want to do something.
Well, Jane even calls him out when they're on the bus, and she goes, "Well, why don't you just call your dad for help?" But we find out that Vic's worried about the painting, about what he's becoming, and he feels like it's the machine's taking over, and there's nothing that can be done to stop it.
Yes.
So that's his fear talking at this point. But they did address it, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. I just love Jane. I love that actress.
Yeah, Diane.
She is just amazing. The different way she takes this. I don't know if I'm a big fan of the Bureau of Normalcy. Though we'll see. Let's hope they become a little better. I'm a little. I think it was a great, kind of cliffhanger. I
think they're a secondary threat compared. Obviously, Mr. Nobody's the big threat.
Yes.
But I think the Bureau of Normalcy is more like a secondary threat.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, but I it was the least important of the 3 storylines.
Yeah.
Though I think it set it up really well. That we're kind of going into the next where they're going to have to try to help Vic and do things. So yeah, I mean it was fine. It just wasn't. It was definitely the C storyline to me.
Yeah. Now Vic, as we find out, is becoming more cybernetic against his will. Grid points out that he basically we start off with this Vic storyline where Vic essentially disconnects from Grid, and they have this conversation using like old DOS operating system, which I thought was kind of funny. They go totally retro with that, with a whole C : arrow kind of thing, and typing to one another. And Grid informs him that, okay, he used to be 41% cyborg, and now he's 63% cyborg.
Which is scary.
It is. I mean, imagine if you're Vic and you're like, well, I don't look any different.
Right.
Like I don't look like I have more mechanical parts. He tells Grid this, and Grid, in a rather really creepy way, is just like, well, it's, you're changing inside you into something wonderful, and you just can't see it. It's amazing. Just it's almost like, Grid obviously is becoming consciously aware
Yeah.
and sentient and taking over, and which is, that obviously the main threat here. And so to the point where Vic is just like, okay, I need to see what's going on. So he takes like a scalpel and he cuts into his human flesh looking arm, and you think, okay, he's just going to bleed out all over the place. And he opens it up and he realizes, okay, there's not a whole lot of blood coming out. And he kind of peels it back and he sees a whole bunch of and the fleshy part of his arm, he sees some mechanical parts underneath. And that's got to be really unsettling if you're Vic.
Yeah. It
You're
was
becoming
a little
more
scary. Yeah.
Right.
I worry for Vic because he's Cyborg is more human than Cyborg, and
Yeah.
it's that if this operating system, Grid keeps
Yes.
doing this, that's going to end up not the case.
Right.
And so I think it's a real challenge, and I think it's a real threat, and we're going to see what's happening.
Yeah, and I think ultimately they're leading up to where Grid eventually takes over Vic's body.
Yes,
and is the one that is responsible for killing the Doom Patrol in Jane's painting.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just like, that's why I've been like all season going, you need to keep an eye on Grid.
Yes, you have. You have.
And sure enough, you need to keep an eye on Grid, and hopefully this should be very obvious by now. This is obviously because in the comics, in Jeff Johns' Justice League, Grid essentially takes over Cyborg, and to the point where Cyborg has to excise Grid from his system, and Grid kind of becomes almost like a bizarro, use a Superman term, a bizarro version of Cyborg.
Oh, okay.
So like a kind of like a that evil alternate that becomes an enemy of cyborgs. Perfect. So that's where I think ultimately they'll be leading. But at this point, yeah, it's just right now Grid is a humongous threat, and I've been like going, yeah, guys, hello, pay attention to this. So very interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
Jane, meanwhile. Jane, interestingly, for the first time ever, she's the one calling a team meeting.
Yes.
And Vic kind of like on the bus talks to her and goes, okay, so what's going on here? Like, you're the one calling the team meeting. You're the one that wants to go looking for the chief. I thought you didn't like the chief. I thought you were angry with him.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, well, she apparently has been just obsessing over the whole idea of an old folks Doom Patrol, home, and the idea that the chief was going to lock her in there. So her reasons for finding the chief are, I want to hear it from him. I want to know why he wanted to lock me up. What his rationale was for locking me up.
Yeah, I think that
so hopefully the chief has a really good answer for that.
Yeah, I think so. And we know the chief sometimes has his own agenda.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. Good.
Yeah, he's not going to be obviously looking for Jane's best interest. And I think that's why Jane is obviously mad at him, because she put her trust in him as a surrogate father, because her own father is so horrible.
Yes.
And she started to trust him, and then now she kind of feels like he betrayed that trust.
And did you like the when she very firmly says, "No one saved me"?
You're right.
Yeah, because in her mind, she wasn't saved.
Right.
As a child, no one was there.
She had to save her.
Yes, absolutely.
And her various personas. Yes.
Absolutely.
So so it's very important, I think. And
I think so too.
So they basically go. They find out, Vic and Jane, that when I talked about last week about the My Greatest Adventure number 51 and the whole idea that they were teasing Flex Mentallo, this hero of the beach character, which is a version of like the Charles Atlas ads that used to be in comic books back in the day. Well, Jane apparently tracked down that, the hero of the beach is this guy named Flex Mentallo because, hey, she looked at the cereal box. And remember I mentioned last week that the cereal box was called Mentallo's? Well, Jane picked up on that. And so she realized eventually they find out that he had a wife named Dolores. So they try to track down Dolores. And this woman apparently named Dolores gets a hold of them. They arrange a meeting off camera at some point. So Vic and Rita take the Doom bus and try to meet Dolores. And while they're waiting, they see a couple arguing. And Jane, like the large boyfriend is kind of being abusive to his girlfriend or wife or whatever. Jane doesn't take too kindly to that abuse. And so she goes out to kind of give the guy a piece of her mind and try to be protective of the girl. And at the same time, while Jane goes off following them, Dolores shows up at the bus and sees Vic. And then we find out that, surprise, all three of these people are agents of the Bureau of Normal.
Yeah, and
they're basically there to kind of kidnap Vic. And that's the plan.
I think it's a really, really, they knew how to get her.
Yes.
I mean, talk about doing a perfect trap.
Right.
Well,
they didn't kidnap Jane. They just got her away from Vic.
But how to do that?
Him. Yeah. Jane was Jane's the couple, the fighting couple was a distraction to lure Jane away from Vic.
Yeah, so which is perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
They knew how to manipulate her, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought that was like I said, it was a really nice cliffhanger.
Right.
To see where we're going next time.
Yeah, and then we find out that Vic has been taken to the ant farm.
Yes.
Where Larry was previously held at one point. And Darren Jones, from the Danny Patrol episode, is back and apparently is like they want Vic for some reason, or maybe Grid, or they've got a plan for something there. Yeah. So to be continued, obviously, but it was a good solid cliffhanger for next week.
Yeah, really nice stuff.
Yep. All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
Just it was really nice to go back. I think in my only opinion, and I know I'm in the minority, after a slight misstep, they are back on track doing the series that we love. Right.
Well, I did kind of feel justified is that, some of the things I told you we should be focusing on, like Flex Mentallo, and all that we got payoffs for that.
Yeah.
It's starting to. So it was important, and it's not like the entire episode last week was, it wasn't important. And so hopefully, that's your opinion. So we'll see. So maybe we'll find out more. Maybe we'll find out that the Bureau of Normacy is looking for Slava as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's where the reason they want to get the Doom Patrol out of the way is so that they can get to her. Yeah. That's their ultimate goal, I guess.
Don't you love? I have one of these. I have one quote that I'm going to say in a moment, but But
Go ahead.
no, I just didn't you. I love the fact that they don't want to be called the Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, that's my quote is from early in the episode when
Yeah.
Jane says, "Dear Chief, sorry we never found you. We have no excuse except that we are utterly incompetent. Oh, look, we got a clue from a teleporting genderqueer street." And based on Reed's description, and I quote, a hunky fellow known as Hero of the Beach, signed the totally fracking Doom Patrol.
The
We're not
effing
the Doom Patrol. Yes.
the effing totally useless Doom
Yes.
Patrol. Yes.
Yes. So I just love that. I just love Jane. And like when she became Flick really quick, brought him down, and then
Right.
left. I just she
You,
is
you,
amazing.
you notice how Flit's personality is so bright and cheery
yes, absolutely.
compared to
Like,
Jane. Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like Diane Guerrero could just flip that on like a light switch,
mhm.
and like, okay, everybody, let's go, boom, and like when Flit arrives, and then just Jane being so like jaded. And in comparison, is just just shows Diane Guerrero's great range once again. All right, I like the line between Big D and Rita
Okay.
when he kind of first sees Rita. He goes, "Well, butter my backside and call me a biscuit.
Yeah,
What
that
can I
was
get
great.
what can I get for you, pretty lady?" And Rita replies dryly. She goes, "Gin and tonic. I want to fend off the mosquitoes while I'm here."
That was great.
That
Yes.
was a great line. I love
Yeah.
that. And but I just love that. Well, butter my backside and call me a biscuit.
hmm
I'm gonna have to use that more often.
Yeah.
Any other lines that you liked?
No.
Okay. I like the exchange between Rita and Cliff when they're out in the swamp, and they're going. Rita's going, "Well, why don't you just buy a new watch? What is so special about that watch?" And Cliff goes, "Because it's my effing watch, okay? I won in the Dallas Speedway in 1976 in a neck and neck with Flip Jackson, and that watch means something to her. So if I have to bear wrestle an alligator to prove that I still care about her, then gosh darn it," I'm paraphrasing here for your benefit, "that's what I'm going to do."
Well, for Rob's benefit. Yes, because I would have to edit this.
Right. So there you go.
Yes. Did you think of Pulp Fiction with the watch a little?
A little.
Okay, me too.
Little,
I mean, not a lot, but I just thought
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
I just a little bit.
Yeah, the watch was like
Yeah.
if you remember that with what's his name?
Bruce Willis.
Chris. No, well not. Well,
Oh.
Bruce Willis, but also I was thinking of the other actor,
Okay.
the one that gave him the watch.
Oh yeah, Christopher Walken.
Yes, Christopher Walken. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. How can I forget him?
Mhm.
All right. I liked another line between Rita and Cliff, where they're talking about Cliff just talking to Clara, and so Rita says, "Or you could just talk to her," and Cliff goes, "And say what? Everything I could possibly say would be just totally stupid as F. Hi, I'm your dad, but I died, and I'm a robot now. I'm just a brain in a tin can, but hey, even though I've been robot non grata for 30 years, and I don't expect you to like me, and you certainly don't have to love me, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry." And Rita goes, "Yes, that's exactly what you would say." I thought it was a great moment.
Yeah, I love that. I did like that, and part of me wants to see him have that conversation,
Right.
but I don't think it'll work well. But yeah, I would love that. Like, okay, here we going. So yeah.
That was good. Oh, and I did have this one line way early in the episode where Rita's telling Jane how frustrated she is because of Karen's manipulations. I forgot to mention this.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "Not since I understudied Betty Davis have I been so monomaniacally manipulated, mind-controlled, and emotionally abused."
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a very Rita line on that one.
Very Rita line. Nice shout out to name dropping
Betty Davis.
Betty Davis. Yes.
Yeah, that was good. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Rita's kind of a name dropper in case you hadn't noticed.
Is.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any other quotes? Nope. All right.
Nope.
What's your rating?
I give this 9 out of 9 buckets chicken.
9 out of 9?
9 out of 10. Yes, 9. Yes, thank you.
So it was a perfect.
Yeah.
All right, 9 out of 10 buckets. I was thinking about the chicken. I forgot to use. That's a good one. I like that one. I like this one a little less than you. I thought it was good though. I gave it 8.5 out of 10 leaping alligators.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I love the fact that Francis was just like almost like a bionic man going through the air in a very almost Matrixy Neo kind of way, to use a more modern reference. But I like that a lot. So good episode, good character development. But we're still waiting for more of the bigger episodes, which are obviously to come. So good steady progression, back on track, as Jesse would say. All right.
Very nice.
Now, I don't have any Titans Tower news once again. We just recorded like 3 days ago.
Right.
So not a lot of news between now and then. But
Holly Mack sent us an email.
Holly Mack says, do you want to read her email?
I
or do. You want
I
me to?
have it.
All right, go ahead and read it.
Hey, Charles and Jesse. Another great episode. I love the scenes between Rita and Cliff with her trying to give him a pep talk before seeing his daughter again. Clara's speech was touching and made Bump a bit more likable. Cliff deciding to go and take care of Francis to get the watch back was great. The scenes between Jon and Larry in the past and the present were great and gave more backstory to them. The talk between Jane and Vic was good, and I think they're able to understand one another more. The ending scene with Clara finding the watch in the bar was perfect. I do hope that Claire and Cliff do wind up talking to each other, but if they don't, this was a good way to wrap it up. Talk to y'all soon. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Yes, perfect.
Always great great to hear from you, and thanks for checking in. And one of the things that you brought up, Vic and Jane. This is the first time we've really seen these two characters really interact.
Yeah.
And they have surprisingly more in common than you would think, apparently.
I agree. Yes.
So I thought that was good that we're kind of seeing, like characters that we haven't seen really interact with one another finally do that. So that was good.
Mm-hmm.
So good points, Holly, once again.
Yes.
And so if you want to be like Holly, and hey, you should, drop us a line here at Titan Talk at TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. That's TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. Otherwise, you can reach us on Twitter at Titan Talkcast. We definitely appreciate you doing that. Or on Facebook at Titan Talk, the Titans Podcast, where we talk obviously about things Titans and Doom Patrol, and we'll post news of the upcoming second season of the Titans. And as we I know Titans' season 2 is a little ways off. Swamp Thing's coming up. Obviously, doesn't have a lot to do with Titans or Doom Patrol, but I don't know if you saw the trailer for that, but it looks pretty good. Going to check that out, and especially if you're a fan of Swamp Thing. Other than that, Jesse, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
I can be reached at Jesse Jackson on at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I am on Facebook at Jesse Jackson, Louisville, Texas. You can hear Charles and I talk about Doctor Who and other geeky things about once a month right now on Next Stop Everywhere. Charles continues to hold down the fort every other week with rotating guest casts, and they all have been amazing, so you should check that out. During this final season of Game of Thrones, I am on Small Council Matters, where I talk to Christine, Shannon, Wendy, and we discuss this final breakdown. As we record this, it's going to be a big episode tonight, and on my Facebook page, I have posted who I think will die. And then lastly,
Jesse Jackson Death Watch.
Yes. Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where I talk to Bruce Springsteen fans from around the world. And we've got a new thing going where we're going to have a Springsteen Thought of the Day once a week, where I and guest contributors give a favorite lyric, whether Springsteen or not, and give a little meaning about it. And I'm putting pressure on Charles to contribute.
Uh-oh.
Got the Cranberries, you got Sting, you've got U2, you've got all these great bands you love. I'm sure
Right.
you can find a lyric or two that you want to talk about because, hey, Charles, you're not shy. And Charles, how can we find you?
That's just the anxiety meds, that's all. But no, as for me, you can reach me on the Twitter machine at Charles Skaggs or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Would definitely appreciate you following me in there. Or on Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can reach me on my blog of geeky things. Come on.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including Titans news, Doom Patrol news, news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including the aforementioned Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that I do with Jesse, or Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where I talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. And Zan was kind enough to help fill in on Next Stop Everywhere. She appeared on Next Stop episode 139, where we talked the greatest show in the galaxy. And very happy that she did that. I thought she did a really good job on Next Stop Everywhere.
I agree.
And so if you enjoyed us there, please check us out on Ghostwood. I would definitely appreciate that as we talk about all kinds of really offbeat things like we talk about here when we're talking Doom Patrol. So if you like Doom Patrol, you've definitely liked Twin Peaks probably. And so please check that out on Ghostwood. Definitely appreciate that. And also please go to the Southgate Media Group page and support our Patreon page there, because that helps our executive producer Rob Southgate keep the lights on and get all these great episodes out to all of you wonderful people out there in podcast land.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure Rob would definitely appreciate that as well. So other than that, next time on Titan Talk, Jesse and I are going to talk Cyborg Patrol as we get to episode 12 of 15. And the premise of this one, with Vic captured and held at the Ant Farm, his father Silas hatches a plan with the rest of the Doom Patrol to break him out. Naturally, things go awry. And if you saw the trailer, you saw that Jane throws and Rita throws some serious shade at Silas for how he's treated Vic.
Yes, they did.
So, and did a good job with that. So, looks like it's going to be a great episode next week.
Absolutely.
So, looking forward to talking about that. Presumably we get a big cyborg spotlight. So, hey, that fits perfectly for a Titans podcast.
Absolutely.
So, which is why we're covering Doom Patrol, because obviously the cyborg connection. And looking forward to talking about that with you, Jesse.
Yeah, I did want to mention that I follow a couple of the cast members of Titans on Twitter.
Yeah.
And specifically the lady who I'm drawing a blank, who plays Donna Troy, who is a real-life photographer. Yeah. And so there's been a few tweets about that. Nothing breaking, just that I guess they're filming and they're out there. And so that's been kind of fun to see.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to get some more production photos. Hopefully there's – because I know there was a lot of leaking of season 1. So hopefully we'll get more of that, because I want to see some more photos of production behind the scenes.
I'm really hoping we see more of Connor Leslie, because I thought she was perfect. And
Yeah, I think she'd probably be a regular at this point now,
I would
hopefully.
Hope so. Good.
So, yeah, because that was probably my favorite episode of season 1 was the Donna Troy episode.
Oh, absolutely. Just practically perfect in every way. Yep. All right, Charles. Well, thank you as always for driving the bus and joining me.
I'm keeping us on time.
We are doing well. And, enjoy Game of Thrones and
hopefully there's lots of body count this week.
Have your comfort, your security blanket ready, because there's a good chance someone you love will die tonight. On the show.
My security blanket is my wife, Lori. So
good, very nice.
Yeah, I think that's a great security blanket, personally.
Absolutely.
All right, so looking forward to that. And everybody, come on back next time for episode 32. We're going to talk Cyborg Patrol as we come on back, and we'll be right here waiting for you at Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.